with the gift I had spent a whole week choosing and wrapping in my hands. I arrived precisely 3 minutes early. The December air was frigid, yet my palms were sweating. I stepped out of the cab, attempting to calm myself and smooth my coat while my heels crunched over the gravel. It was the day of my sister Isabella's wedding, the child with the golden hue, the one that was loved by all. I just wanted to be a part of it for once. I wanted to be more than just a supporting character. They all graciously put up with the +1 less abnormality. I saw guests mingling in their best clothes as I made my way to the entryway of the opulent country location. An estate home decked up in white flowers and strings of sparkling lights, soft piano music, clinking glasses, and laughter. I went unnoticed. Nobody looked back. There she is, was not mentioned. With her arms full of programs, my mother swept past me. She didn't even look at him. Distracted by a chat with my uncle, my father gave a small nod. The bartender was the only one to greet me, and he inquired, red or white, with a gentle smile, and that was prior to things becoming worse. The reception hall had been set up carefully inside, a long, high table at the front for the bride and groom and, supposedly, all wedded family members. My name card was frozen in my hand as I stood there. I didn't have a place card at the main table. Rather, I received a gentle tap on my shoulder from a venue staff member who said, "You're over here, ma'am, table 11, in the rear, close to the restrooms, next to the entryway for catering." I glanced at the table, which was half full, primarily with 2 visitors who didn't speak English and distant relatives. The ringing in my ears began. I glanced toward the front. My older brother is married. My sister-in-law chuckled while sipping champagne. My little sister got engaged, still managed to get a seat. There was even room for my cousin Mark, who brought his 3-month girlfriend, and me, only me, single, 35, 2 unmarried apparently, to sit with my own family. I returned to my mom and gave her a quick tap on the shoulder. "Hello, may I ask why I'm at table 11? She didn't flinch at all. "The main table is for couples, my love. In any case, you wouldn't feel at ease there. Wouldn't it feel cozy?" It was as though someone had just hit me. I took another look around. My father refused to look at me. My aunt looked at me pityingly. My brother mouthed sorry and shrugged. Isabella. She didn't even realize I wasn't up there because she was too busy posing with her bouquet. Collectively, they had determined that I was not one of them. Not because my sister wasn't loved by me. Not because I wasn't related to anyone. However, because I was. By myself. My heart was beating so loudly that it overpowered the music when I sat down at table 11. I maintained a mask-like smile. I raised my glass, nodded, and observed the talks from a distance. My mother looked at me and nodded as though to say, "Maybe one day, honey," when they raised a toast to the lovely bonds of marriage. Something inside of me broke at that same moment. When I had a glass half full and my heart utterly empty, my goal had always been to be sufficient, to be the one who understands, to keep my head down, to make peace, and to avoid trouble. But while I sat there, alone, disregarded, and degraded, I at last realized something. It wasn't me who didn't fit in. It was they who had never laid eyes on me. Perhaps that was going to change, because I made the decision that evening that I would no longer be the silent one. I refused to let them determine my place in the world. Never again. Never. I woke up in my childhood bedroom the following morning. There was silence in the house. Too silent. The laughter from last night, which I did not participate in, was still resonating in my ears. It seemed like someone else's dress, still hanging neatly over the chair, someone who still thought she was important. However, I no longer felt like her. As I lay in bed, I continued playing back the scene where I was introduced to table 11. "You wouldn't feel at ease there anyhow," Mom remarked. How effortlessly, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. They had eliminated me. In actuality, though, it was more than just the wedding. I had been trying to ignore it for years, but that moment had just revealed it. This was how it had always been. I let the memories flood my mind as I closed my eyes. I received straight, as when I was 8 years old, and I sat at the dinner table all night hoping that someone would notice. They didn't. Isabella received balloons after receiving a B+. Everyone was too busy, so I created my own cake for my 12th birthday, I recalled. I wasn't even whiny. Around 9 o'clock at night, Mom finally remembered, and I just grinned. She took a $5 bill out of her purse and handed it to me. Isabella. Every year, she had a new dress, themed parties, and well-planned ensembles. I convinced myself at the time that it was merely a coincidence. I reasoned that I might not have been as lovable. Perhaps they would notice me if I put in more effort and worked harder. I then assumed responsibility. The assistant, the person who was listening, with his paperwork. I assisted Dad. I looked after my siblings. I took it upon myself to do the dishes. In order to free up the car for my sister's dancing practices, I rode the bus to school. I wasn't asked to. However, nobody stopped me either. I recall using the money from my part-time job to buy gifts for everyone one Christmas. Thoughtful ones, chosen by hand. I was given a set of lotions. Already, one bottle was leaking. I grinned. I was usually grinning, despite the pain, because the first secretly believed that people would eventually recognize my value if I simply continued to be good. However, they never did. I showed them what I had given them. However, they never gave me a glance. The saddest thing, I believe, was that I knew it. I simply didn't want to accept it. I continued to call every Sunday until I moved away for college. On birthdays, send flowers. Come spend the holidays at home. Once, Isabella failed to remember Mom's birthday. They chuckled and remarked, "She's very busy at work, one Thanksgiving. I forgot to pack wine for the remainder of the day." They didn't talk to me. Even in my own family, I was always the outsider. It was subtle, though. Death from 1,000 tiny wounds. The bleeding had only recently come to light at the wedding. Then something changed inside of me. Not rage. Not quite yet. Just some clarity. I wasn't insane. I wasn't unappreciative. I wasn't dreaming. They genuinely thought I was inferior, as lacking, unmarried, unworthy. The table wasn't the only issue. That was what the table stood for. You don't belong with us. You haven't accomplished what counts. Eyes hurting. I sat up in bed. I had been waiting for approval to fit in for years. I knew now that I didn't require it. But I had to give up expecting that they would change if I ever desired freedom or peace. I needed to begin transforming myself. I didn't eat breakfast that morning. My suitcase was just packed. Since the reception, no one had visited me. There was no knock on the door. No, how are you feeling? It wasn't even a friendly good morning. In the kitchen, I could hear chairs rubbing against the tile, silverware clinking, and laughter. They were on their way, as if nothing had occurred. I had also finished acting. I noticed something odd while I was zipping up my bag. I wasn't depressed. Not at all. My feelings were empty. Keep quiet. Perhaps that was the initial indication of anything novel. I carried my suitcase downstairs. Mom raised her head from her cup of coffee. "Oh, you're already heading out." Half surprised, half smiling, she questioned. I gave a nod. Yes, tomorrow is my workday. It was a falsehood. I had been off for the whole week. However, I no longer owed them my truth. She appeared disappointed, but that didn't deter me. She turned back to the table after saying, "All right, well, safe travels, no embrace, no." I appreciate you coming. Isabella didn't even raise her head. Her spouse had said something that made her giggle. I closed the door behind me as I left. Outside, the air felt different, cooler, as if I could breathe at last. I did something I never would have imagined doing the next week. The family group chat was muted by me. No more alerts, no more pictures of updates I wasn't supposed to remark on, baby showers I wasn't asked to attend, or Sunday meals I wasn't invited to. It was a pleasant feeling. Liberation. I immediately stopped taking my mother's calls. They were sent to voicemail. When I did answer, I didn't say much. I didn't give an explanation. I didn't say I was sorry. I was slow to offer assistance. "You're in that region, right?" My brother's wife requested me to pick up her dry cleaning. I apologized, but I couldn't. No justification. Simply cannot. It was deliciously quiet on the other end. Something had changed within me. I would have automatically answered yes in the past. Then, when they didn't even say thank you. I would have altered my schedule, gone above and beyond, and pretended it didn't upset me. Right now, I made my own decision now. Retaliation wasn't the point. Not quite yet. I needed to remind myself that I was a human, that I was limited. And I got a bit stronger with each no. A few weeks later, the true turning moment occurred. A friend I hadn't seen in months joined me for supper. She had always been one of those pals who seemed to see your soul when she looked at you. Her name was Emily. "You've been quiet lately," she said gently over wine. "Is everything in your family going well?" I paused. I then filled her in on everything: the wedding, the table, the years she spent as a daughter of the lower class, the brother who was invisible. I thought she would say something reassuring, something courteous. However, she didn't. "That's not okay," she said. I blinked. "What? It's not acceptable," she reiterated. "That isn't love. Family shouldn't be like that. That is neglect and control cloaked in civilized custom." It was the most straightforward way I had ever heard it. I confess that I believed I was being dramatic. "You are not," she remarked. "At last, you're recognizing it for what it is." I had trouble sleeping that night. I couldn't get her words out of my brain. At last. You're recognizing it for what it is. You can't unsee it after you've seen it. My mother called me a few days later. Her voicemail was left. "Hello, my love. Next weekend is your cousin's baby shower. Everyone will be present. You've got my vote for potato salad. Tell me." Without a doubt. No invitation. Only a directive. I didn't return the call. I forgot to pack the potato salad. The sky did not fall either. That day, I went hiking instead. I was alone with my thoughts, standing atop a peaceful hill. And for the first time in years, I felt at ease. I checked my texts later. "Another one of Isabella's. I've heard you didn't take a shower. Very elegant." I looked at it for a while. I blocked her after that. As simple as that. No justification. Don't apologize. Silence was my choice. The silence seemed strong for once. I kept my move a secret from everyone, not even Emily. There were some things that had to be done quietly, with no say, no shame, and no possibility of someone persuading me to stay. One box at a time, I packed my apartment. Silently. With caution. I felt like I was removing another layer of what I could put up with every item I wrapped. The framed family portrait. I remember the framed family portrait from 5 Christmases ago, where they had me standing alone, like a +1 in my own family. I put that in a storage bin that I called Old Life. A small cottage on the outskirts of town was rented by me. Only a little bit of sky. The trees. And me. It was mine, even though it wasn't fancy. This group chat topic does not exist. There was no last-minute request from a sister to watch the kids. My mother didn't call to remind me which cousin was expecting, as if it determined our value in some way. I didn't have to perform for once. All I had to do was breathe. Nevertheless, I could see their uncertainty growing even as I withdrew. The frequency of the texts increased. "I have not heard from you, Mom. Is everything all right? Isabella, don't be theatrical. Even if I know you're angry. My aunt, family ties are strong. You've always had such a sensitive nature." Every communication functioned similarly to a fishing hook, dipped in remorse, laced with authority. However, I refrained from biting. I started a new bank account instead, from my utilities to my credit card. I updated the mailing address. Even a new phone number was given to me. It was only in the possession of Emily, my boss, and the proprietor of the cafe I had been going to on Saturdays. Her name was Emily. He never asked too many questions and always had a smile on his face. It was quiet. However, the family disliked tranquility, not when it wasn't under their authority. Anyway, one Sunday afternoon proved to be the decisive moment. I had my phone on quiet and was cuddled up in my new tiny living room reading a book. Hours later, I checked it and discovered 19 missed calls. Everything from my mom, my sister, even Jenna, my cousin. Then the texts arrived. "Give me a call right now. What on earth are you doing? Izzy was blocked by you. What's wrong with you? Mom is in tears. Are you happy now?" My father then gave me one that was like a kick to the face. Put an end to this stupidity. You're creating a commotion. Come home and mature. Return home, as though I had one at all. I didn't respond. I didn't have to. I was aware of what had set them off. I didn't remain silent. The loss of control was the cause. They were beginning to see that I wasn't merely angry. I had left. A certified letter came a week later. It came from an attorney. It turns out that I was the backup co-signer on a real estate loan that my parents were attempting to obtain without consulting me. My chest tightened with every breath. It was authentic. Once more, they were attempting to bind me with debt, with a proposition I had never accepted. I gave the attorney a call. I firmly informed him that I was unaware of this and that I would not be co-signing anything. He hesitated. You already did, they said. What? The documents they supplied were signed by you. In my veins. It felt like ice. I requested copies from him. My hands were shaking when I opened the envelope when they arrived. It was there. My name, my details, my signature. It wasn't mine, though. They made it up. My assent had been forged by my own family. I refrained from crying. I refrained from screaming. I became silent. Too silent. After that, I decided, no more defending them. No more assuming the best about them. No more quiet. I had a meeting with my own lawyer the following morning. She was a woman named Tasha, and when you informed her that your family had betrayed you, she didn't hesitate. Let's fix this, she murmured, simply leaning forward and folding her hands. A legal cease and desist was filed by us. This action was not solely directed towards the scam, except for the unlawful use of my identity, the emotional blackmail, and the harassment. I then got in touch with the bank. My credit was frozen. My name was flagged. I had had enough of being kind. They can call it dramatic. Allow them to label me frigid. Allow them to tell any tale they like. Now. I had a paper trail and a lawyer who was perfectly capable of using it. The unmarried sister seated at the wrong table was no longer me. They had no idea what was going to happen, but I was the lady who could pull the rug out from under them. It was less than a month till the wedding. I hadn't sent in an RSVP. I hadn't communicated with my mom, or Isabella, or any other family member. Nevertheless, an invitation from my previous address continued to arrive in my mailbox, embossed in gold and wrapped in ribbon like a peace offering. The cardstock was cream in color. I looked at it for a while, not because I was considering leaving, but because I had finally realized what it was. It wasn't an act of goodwill. It was a trap. There was an implicit request that I go back to my apartment, where I would be calm, well-groomed, sitting in the background, grinning for the pictures, and acting as if nothing had happened. However, I was no longer that girl. I replied as a result, not via RSVP. Via my attorney, Tasha personally handed the documents, which were addressed to my mother, father, and sister for good measure. Proof of the falsified loan signature was included. The package also included a cease and desist document and an official warning that I could face criminal prosecution if I tried to exploit my name or likeness in financial affairs again. They weren't very shaken by that, though. The third envelope was the one in question, the one that caught them off guard. A notarized statement of everything was inside. Every aspect of the psychological abuse. Each and every case of exclusion. Every attempt I made to gain acceptance was met with ridicule, rejection, or exploitation. And I said to them, for years, you have treated me as if I were not family. I'm giving you exactly what you treated me as a stranger for the first time. They didn't answer. Not initially. However, I was certain that they would. They are always liked by others, because they are afraid of silence when they can't manage it. I didn't conceal on the wedding day. I left home. I arrived in a black suit that was fitted. No date, no grin. Only me. And strength. The ceremony took place in a magnificent downtown hall. White marble floors. Dozens of visitors. Ice sculptures and champagne towers. I entered as though I belonged there because I did. People turned. When my mother saw me, she gasped. The wine glass paused at my father's lips as he stood motionless. Isabella, too. She faked a tight-lipped smile after blinking. Oh, you arrived. I moved in closer, only enough to be heard by her alone. Calmly. I answered. You forged my signature. You also assumed that I would remain silent. Her expression fell. What are you discussing? I cocked my head. Your attorney is aware. Consult him. I didn't have to elaborate. The fraud report had already been submitted by Tasha to the State Financial Bureau. They were under investigation. And I had all the power today, the day they assumed I would sit in the back row, thankful just to be there. Then the final moment arrived. The reception. They had produced and posted the seating chart. People were approaching to get their names. I watched from the side of the board. Isabella was asked, "Where is your sister sitting?" by her maid of honor. She stopped. She spoke in a strained voice. I mean, she didn't bring anyone. So she's not. She will accompany the table for singles. I took the initiative at that point. I said loudly enough for the guests in the vicinity to hear, "Oh, I'm leaving before dinner." Those who falsify legal documents and call it family are not individuals I hang out with. A pause occurred. Silence. I turned after that. Be calm, managed, and left. Not a drama. Don't shout. Only honor. I uploaded one item to my private account later that evening. A picture of my new home. I lit a candle on the windowsill. I have a cup of tea. Caption, peace costs money. However, I made a full payment. The texts began to come in within minutes. How could you harm your sister in this way? The entire family was embarrassed by you. You must express regret. However, I didn't respond. I didn't have to, because, for once, they were discussing me without being in charge of me. That was sufficient. And I was aware that this was not the end. They would continue to attempt, but my fear had subsided. I had a lawyer. I lived my own life. I also knew the truth. The fallout arrived sooner than I anticipated. It began with murmurs. Then it started to make noise. A friend from town sent me a screenshot 2 days after the wedding. A post on Facebook. I believe it was written by my cousin's wife, although I can hardly remember. I once sat next to this person during a family reunion. It said, "It's unfortunate what envy can do to a human. Imagine using a chair to spoil your own sister's wedding." There were also remarks. A ton of comments. Not grateful. I was always aware that she held a grudge. Not even a +1 was with her. It was painless. Not at all. Because terror lurked beneath the phony outrage and sympathy. They were rushing, attempting to steer the narrative, attempting to shrink me once more. However, that was too late. I received a call from Tasha 2 weeks later. They're afraid, she stated in a composed tone. Their lawyer and I just hung up the phone. They are prepared to make a peaceful settlement. I apologize completely. Cancellation of any monetary claims. They also desire a non-disclosure. I took a while to respond because I came to the realization that the apology didn't matter to me, or the cash, or possibly retaliation. Peace was what I desired. Let them keep their money, I told her. However, I need documentation to prove that I never signed anything. I demand the cancellation of all debts associated with my name, and that I owe them nothing. Not legally, not emotionally, and not in any other way. She hesitated. Are you certain? I'm positive. The silence felt different after that. Not the burdensome kind I once carried. Drenched in loneliness and shame, it was silence, liberty. I relocated to a little cottage outside of town. The cottage isn't particularly luxurious. Simply be silent. Each morning, I opened the windows, breathed in the scent of fresh coffee and woods. I went back to writing. Simple stuff, like poems, essays, and letters I never mailed. I occasionally read old journal entries from the moments when I still had hope that they might return my affection. I still had faith that they would eventually notice me if I was excellent enough, quiet enough, and valuable enough. But I stopped crying because I had changed from that version of myself. And I at last realized something. I wasn't rejected because I wasn't valuable. I contested theirs, so they turned me away. Then the doorbell rang one afternoon. My mother was standing there when I opened it, a cake in hand, as if nothing had occurred. "Hello," she said with an uncertain smile. I wanted to drop by. I remained silent. She peered around me into the cottage's silence. It's comfortable. I remained silent, though. She moved the package around in her grasp. Your sister is expecting a child. I arched an eyebrow. And we thought, perhaps this year for Christmas. You could know, I answered plainly. Her expression dropped. We are family, though. No, I said again. We're not. She took a deep breath. That's not what you mean. I cocked my head. Yes, I do. She attempted to give the cake to me. I refused to accept it. And she gave me a genuine look behind her eyes for the first time, one that was neither remorse nor rage, fear, because she became aware that she was losing her power, and I had no intention of returning. The cake was left on the doorstep by her. She clutched her purse like a lifeline as I watched her down the stairs. Additionally, I kept the cake after she left. I gave it to the dog of the neighbor. Since certain things are still beneficial, not to me, though. I sat across from a new person a week later. A friend of a friend became perhaps more. You don't talk much about your family, do you? He questioned. I gave a quiet smile. They no longer define me, I said. I don't waste words. Then, as if he understood, he nodded. And I thought someone could for the first time. Not because I did a good job of explaining myself, but since I didn't have to give any explanation. I no longer communicate with my relatives. When I mention that, sometimes people wince, as if it were too harsh or definitive. But borders are necessary for peace, and I've finally finished arguing with those who simply saw me as lacking in my own worth. I wake up slowly these days. Not a single alarm. No responsibilities that seem like pitfalls. Only the delicate rustle of leaves outside my window and sunlight coming in through the drapes. I water my porch's little herb garden. I write. I read books with pages that have been dog-eared. I take my time sipping my coffee. And rather than carrying the weight of the world, I allow it to flow through me. Because I've discovered that you can demonstrate that you survived pain without holding on to it. Holidays came and went. No invitations. No group texts that are passive-aggressive. Not guilty. The fact that my phone was silent was a gift in itself. On Christmas Eve, I prepared a lovely supper for myself. Only me. Candles. Wine. Soft background music is playing just because I could. I poured a second glass. Not for anyone else. Since I wanted to honor the part of me that used to sob into takeout containers while questioning what she had done wrong. There was nothing wrong with her. They desperately wanted to protect the mold, but she didn't fit it. She is now at liberty. Now, just a select few people in my life are aware of me. Not because of who I'm seeing, what I bring to the table, or how many boxes I check. They perceive me for who I am. Sloppy. Sincere. Complete. Caleb is there. He never presses when I stop talking and always knocks softly before speaking. My neighbor, Elaine, brings me baked foods along with sticky notes that read, "You're not alone today." The barista at the downtown cafe remembers my order and remarks, "You look so much better these days." I'm not related to any of them. However, in fleeting moments, they have shown me more affection than my family ever did in years of custom. I occasionally drive past the former neighborhood. As a reminder, not out of want. I once thought that the folks who raised you had to be the ones to show you affection, that you didn't deserve it anywhere if you didn't earn it from them. However, it isn't how love operates. Freedom doesn't either. You were born deserving of a feast, so you don't need to constantly beg for scraps. The lady I am now, she doesn't sit in the back quietly. She doesn't say she's sorry for not wearing a ring to make her sister shine brighter. She doesn't dull her own brightness. She doesn't give an explanation to those who are determined to misunderstand her. She enters a room, settles in, and arranges her own table. If someone doesn't think she's valuable, it's not her burden, it's their blindness. If you've ever been made to feel inferior because you didn't fit the family model or adhere to the proper time frame, it's for you. You're not damaged. You're not in the rear, simply said. Those who are too narrow-minded to understand the depth of your spirit do not define you. So take a proud stance. Put peace above performance. Put happiness ahead of custom. Make the decision for yourself, not because you are your only option, but since you've always been sufficient, even though they didn't say it, even if they didn't witness it. You are sufficient, and living like it is sometimes the best kind of retaliation.